As promised in the last video, I want to share how my state of mind plays into my disposophobia and what I've been doing to shift my state of mind. What got me started on this was reading a great post on Reddit. This woman described how she realized all her just-in-case possessions had taken over her life and were preventing her happiness. Here are some excerpts that really struck a chord. Anxious people like me are living in a fearful state, surrounding ourselves with items to prevent vague potential future emergencies. Happy people maintain perspective and live in the now. Happy people know that they can deal with problems or needs when they arise. Happy people define themselves by their character and their relationships, not by their stuff. Happy people are not constantly predicting or preparing for emergencies. All those items we keep, thinking maybe someday, if things get dire enough, they'll have their chance to shine. But that's so pessimistic. When I hoard, I'm betting on things going bad. It's a defective way of thinking that blocks joy. I don't want to live from that negative, pessimistic place. I'm trying to think differently, to imagine a life where calamities are not waiting around every corner, where I don't need the armor of all this stuff, where I trust the world and myself to deal with it, where I know it's worth letting things go and trusting that the things I need will be there when I need them. It's like I kind of knew these things deep down inside in bits and pieces, but what she wrote pulled it all together for me. I've gotten stuck on a mental hamster wheel where I wanted to be rid of my excess clutter so badly. I wanted clear open space so badly. And yet when I tried to discard things, I felt like I couldn't pull the trigger. And then I get down on myself and end up going in circles. I was frustrated, feeling like I had plateaued, and reading this woman's post made me realize I'm living in a constant state of fear, and that's a huge obstacle in my decision making. So for the past several months, I haven't done a lot of physical decluttering. I'm still doing my daily discards to maintain consistency, but I started working on my mindset and have been really focused on changing it. If I'm 200 pounds overweight and I try to run a marathon, it's going to be incredibly taxing, right? I can attempt to do it, but each step is going to be a laborious challenge. I'm going to feel like I won't be able to make it to the finish line, which will make me want to give up. Trying to declutter without addressing my perfectionism, negative mindset, lack of self-belief, and painful emotions is similar. Those mental aspects are the equivalent of the 200 pounds of excess weight. And just as I wouldn't wait until the morning of a marathon to start losing those 200 pounds, trying to work on my perfectionism while decluttering my possessions isn't ideal, because that's when I'm most vulnerable and most resistant to the possibility of making a mistake. I've been trying different things to improve my mindset and have felt significant shifts. Friends have even said that they've noticed big changes in me. I came across some old paperwork, and what the Reddit post described about being afraid there's a calamity waiting around every corner, that is what made me reluctant to let this paperwork go. These are copies of a title insurance document and related correspondence for my last residence. It was a condo that I sold almost 15 years ago. 2 years after I bought that condo, a tax lien was discovered for outstanding taxes owed on the common areas of the building. Since the title research never disclosed this lien, I sent a letter to the title insurance company via registered mail to make sure I wasn't liable. And I kept all these copies to prove I had notified them. Logically, I know I don't need these copies anymore. But when I went to discard them, something came over me and I felt like I should hang on to the copies. Someone on another message board posted about why she keeps a lot of the records she does. She said, "Much of what I keep in the way of records is legally required or fear-based. It all comes down to the need to prove I did nothing wrong." I totally related to her post too. All the receipts and statements and documents that I've hung on to out of fear, just in case I have to prove that I'm on the up and up, that I paid what I was supposed to pay, that I didn't deduct anything I wasn't allowed to, that I didn't break any rules. Recently, I was reading about fight or flight response. It's our body's response to perceived threat or danger, a reaction we experience during intense stress or fear. Basically, when we don't feel safe, we go into fight or flight mode. When fight or flight mode kicks in, the more primitive parts of the brain take control. We have little or no access to conscious thinking, and we go into a state where willpower and logic have little effect. If a lion comes charging at you, your blood leaves your brain and rushes to your muscles and limbs to get you the hell out of there. Fearful or critical thoughts can lead us to getting locked in this state where willpower and logic have little effect. We get stuck in a vicious circle where our state of fear drives more anxious thoughts, which in turn reinforce the sense that we're not safe. So I have this theory, I call it my Frankenstein theory, because I've assembled it based on research I've read, videos I've watched, and my own experiences trying to combat my hoarding thoughts and behaviors. Often I'll want to discard an item, but when I try to do it, something comes over me and I feel like I shouldn't discard it, or I feel that I can't discard it. Even though I no longer own the condo, a fearful thought entered my mind. I don't remember how this tax issue was resolved. I don't have a copy of anything that definitively released me of the tax liability. So maybe it was never resolved. And if this issue crops up again somehow, I would need to prove that I wasn't liable for those taxes. So I should hang on to these copies. I need to keep these copies. My mind tends to go to worst case scenario. That fearful thought put me in fight or flight mode, and I wasn't thinking logically. I wasn't thinking, that was 26 years ago. Someone else has owned the condo for almost 15 years. Nothing has ever come up in all this time about the ancient tax lien. You don't need to worry about it now. You're safe. Instead, what was in the forefront of my mind was the remote possibility that this issue was never resolved, and I need to make sure I can defend myself in case it crops up out of nowhere. So how do we get out of fight or flight? How do we get our brains to realize that we're not in immediate danger so that we have access to conscious thinking and can make more logical decisions? In my case, I'm alone. I don't have a significant other or a child or an on-call therapist to propose an objective perspective. It's just me and my worst case scenario thoughts. In the next video, I'll share more of my Frankenstein theory. Yeah, this video is ending on a cliffhanger because it's already long. But in the meantime, I hope you'll think about situations where your decision making might have been skewed by being in fight or flight mode.